Hello class, and welcome to our new unit on decimals, place value, and three-digit numbers. So just to start right off, we've all had experiences with different kinds of food and even with toys, and sometimes we're not able to have or use or eat the whole thing. Like when it comes to a pan of brownies, you can't just walk up and say, "Mom, I want the whole pan," and she's going to give it to you. Nope, she's going to cut it into pieces and give you part of the whole. We can look at that number or that part and look at it as a decimal or even as a fraction, but today we'll be focusing on decimals, so in sections of 10, which we've gone over a little bit maybe before. Another way to think about it is you have a big block that's maybe this long, and then you have a bunch of little blocks. Now, how many little blocks does it take to equal the big one? So you're looking at how many pieces of the whole. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. So just to look at this little chart, we're going to remember some different things we've learned about place value. So when it comes to numbers, we have like a whole number, like the number 1, where that would be found in the ones place. And you can see here in the chart, there's going to be a decimal or like a dot right after that 1. And then to the right of that, on the other side, as you get to smaller numbers, you're going to see tenths, hundredths, and thousands. So we're going to be focusing on those in our decimal activity for today, looking at those tenths and hundredths in particular. And that's when you really take the whole, the 1, and you're splitting it up into smaller pieces, and you're only going to have part of that whole represented. So let's take a look at that. And how we're going to look at that and work with it today is through what we're going to call a Decimat activity. So let's go right over to that. Here we are, and we're looking at a whole. So we're looking at this rectangle, and it's going to represent the number 1. So if this is 1, and we're talking about a decimal, like the decimal 0.1 or 1/10, as that is representative of that, we would be looking at something smaller than this whole rectangle. This would be counting as 1, so we need to break it up into smaller chunks. So one way we can do that is section it into tenths, as I've done here. So now each of these rectangles represents 1/10, or in decimals you would see a 0.1. And so if you only have one of these rectangles filled in, you would not have 1, you would have 1/10. Another way to kind of look at that is if, I'm going to just go back here real quick, we're going to copy this already filled in. So now we can see that we have 1/10 of our whole, our giant rectangle filled in, represented. So if I asked you to show me in an activity like this what 3/10 looks like, you would show me something like this. So you would see, oh, I don't have 1 yet. It's smaller than 1, which would be the whole rectangle at large here. Instead, you would see I have 3/10 filled in. So that's one example. Sometimes you have more than 1 digit after the decimal, which would represent hundredths. So those are even smaller parts of that one whole. We can see that in our next slide here, and I've already have a number represented. But you see how you take this larger this rectangle, and you break it up into 10 smaller pieces even, which you can see not filled in right there. So right here, the number we have represented would be 2/10 and 1/100th. Or another way to write this would be 0.21. So that first number after the decimal is showing you how many tenths you have, which are going to be represented by these larger rectangles. Not the whole rectangle, that would be 1, but the larger ones compared to the smaller ones. And then the small little tiny rectangles would be representative of the hundredths. And when we do it like this, you can see that compared to the 1, the whole number, there really are represented tenths, like that 1 is separated into 10 pieces, and even hundredths. We could separate each of these tenths into 10 more pieces to show that there really are 100 hundredths in 1. So that's how decimals work. When you have 10 tenths, you would actually have 1 whole number. So I'm hoping that this is making sense. If it's not, go ahead and shoot me an email, or we can video call to figure something out. But you will have an activity with this Decimat Google Jamboard, and that instructions for that will be in the classroom. Just to show you a little bit of what you will be doing, I've created your own Google Jamboard Decimat activity for you. It has these 4 colored rectangles of each different size already filled in for you. And what you'll be doing is copying those and filling in these pre-made frames to represent different decimals that I will give you. And the worksheet will look something like this. All right, thank you so much.